Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. A downloadable copy of today's presentation is available for download through GoToWebinar. To access that document, expand the Handouts menu and select the icon to download a copy. We will give everyone a couple more minutes to get logged in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Again, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the October LEA Special Education Point of Contact webinar. My name is LaShonda Wilson, and I'm an Education Program Specialist here with OSSE. I'm joined by my OSSE colleagues across multiple divisions as we present content pertinent to policy monitoring, systemic supports, and professional development for LEA SPED POCs. We'll begin with our introduction today, then move to policy reminders and updates, as well as Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, monitoring and updates. We'll segue into transportation reminders and updates, special programs reminders and updates, followed by non-public placement reminders and updates. And then we'll conclude with teaching and learning reminders and updates, and then also our announcements and reminders. OSSE is pleased to bring you this webinar monthly. Our divisions coordinate to bring the most important information to support you in your roles as LEA Special Education Points of Contact. We hope you find this information today and in the coming months as well helpful. It's always our aim to centralize resources and supports for you to easily reference in your day-to-day activities. I'll hand it over now to Christy Weaver-Harris to review policy reminders and updates. Christy?
Good morning, everybody. This is Christy Weaver-Harris. I'm the Policy Manager in the Office of Special Education in the Division of K-12 Systems and Supports. I'm going to go over 3 new resources that OSSE has created to support LEAs and special education points of contact in understanding and carrying out special education and operational responsibilities. Next slide, please. OSSE is excited to have published the Special Education Process Handbook, which I spoke about last month. This is non-regulatory guidance for LEAs to use in understanding and implementing special education processes and requirements. Provides a pretty comprehensive overview of SPED processes from referral to exit, and serves as a companion to the special education, or the Chapter 30 special education regulations. This combines a lot of the guidance that's currently found in our policies and our guidances, and we intend to update it and expand on it on an annual basis based on LEA and practice needs as informed by the Special Education Performance Report, or SEPR, and the rollout of special programs. We hope that this is a helpful resource. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions about the handbook. Next slide, please. OSSE has also released this new special education point of contact role description, which is intended to support LEAs in identifying appropriate staff to carry out special education organizational operations, liaise with OSSE, and ensure implementation of all facets of special education. It breaks down responsibilities and activities in terms of data and information management, compliance activities, and training and development. So this is sort of a job description for those who are designated as the special education point of contact, or SPED POC, in the all staff submission and IDS. And of course, these responsibilities can be shared across multiple people at your LEA. Next slide, please. OSSE has also published the LEA Special Education Calendar, which provides important dates and deadlines related to special education, including data and reporting due dates, IDEA grant deadlines, monitoring activities, and training dates. I'm going to drop a link in the chat to all of these documents, but this document especially will be updated regularly, so it's best for you to access it from the page that it's hosted on, not from like the direct link. So it's on our special education monitoring and reporting site, but I'm going to drop all of these links in the chat as soon as I finish. Next slide, please. So how do these three resources work together? The handbook tells you what of LEA responsibilities, the role description tells you who, and the calendar tells you when, which leaves the how. So you can use these resources to determine at your LEA how you will get these things done. And you can do that through establishing your own internal policies and procedures, which serves to both document like clear expectations within your school buildings, but also supports continuity in an era of high turnover. If you have any questions about these resources, please reach out to the contacts that are identified on this slide or email me directly and I'll point you in the right place. Next slide. That's it for me. I'll keep an eye on the questions box, so please feel free to drop questions there.
Thank you, Christy. I'll turn it over now to Karen Morgan-Donaldson to review IDEA monitoring reminders and updates.
Thank you, LaShonda. My name is Karen Morgan-Donaldson. I'm the Manager of Special Education Monitoring and Compliance. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our SEPR update. On September 29th, OSSE released its first annual SEPR to the public. So public reports are accessible on the OSSE SEPR website, and there's a link on this slide. LEAs can continue to access the reports in the SEPR application in QuickBase. If you do not have access to the SEPR application in QuickBase, go ahead and send me a quick email. I want to just let everybody know, please note that LEA and public reports vary slightly due to OSSE's data suppression policy. Again, any questions, feel free to contact me, or you can also drop a question in the chat. Next slide, please. In terms of monitoring activity updates, we currently have 4 open reports in DC CATS. As a reminder, LEAs are required to complete prong 1 within 90 days of issuance of the initial report, or sorry, the final report in DC CATS. So all prong 1 corrections for secondary transition and reevaluation timeliness should have been completed by September 3rd. All prong 1 corrections for initial evaluation should be completed by November 9th, which is right around the corner. So that's why we give you these updates. For the few LEAs that received an initial report or a preliminary finding for C2B transition timeliness, Please note that this report's correction window closes on October 27th. If you are unsure of the status of your LEA's report in DC CATS, or if you have any other questions about your LEA's monitoring, please reach out to Deborah Melville. We are strongly encouraging LEAs to close out as many prong 1 and prong 2 corrections prior to our transition from DC CATS to Stepwell, which I will talk about in our next slide. So we will be next month, OSSE will transition from DC CATS to a new monitoring and compliance system called Stepwell. Trainings are scheduled for November 14th at 9 a.m. and November 15th at 1 p.m. The trainings will last an hour and a half. Trainings are required for all SPED POCs that will need access to this report or to this data, to this system. Typically, and depending on the size of your LEA, each LEA should have 1 to 2 users for this system. Please continue to use DC CATS until the time you take this training. Once you complete the training, you will receive your credentials and learn how to log in and use the system. There is one exception to the statement, which I will cover in our next slide. But really quick, going back to open findings, all open findings in DC CATS will be migrated over to Stepwell. So again, in an effort to simplify the transition to a new system, OSSE is strongly encouraging LEAs to close out as many findings as possible in DC CATS. Next slide. Okay, child outcome summary is the one monitoring activity that currently takes place in DC CATS that is not transitioning to Stepwell. It will be transitioning over to special programs. So this monitoring activity is a little different. This migration is scheduled for November 1st. All cost data should be submitted in DC CATS no later than close of business on October 31st. All open cost records with complete and incomplete data entry will migrate to special programs. So all new data entry submissions for students enrolled in a preschool or pre-kindergarten special education program must be entered into special programs after October 31st. So use DC CATS up until then, and then after that, please use special programs to verify your information for costs. Trainings for special programs and how to complete this process for costs will be provided on the following dates and times, November 9th and November 14th, and the registration links are available here. If you have any questions about the cost process, please reach out to Dawn Hilton. And I think that's it for me. If you have any questions about anything I presented, go ahead and drop some questions in the chat and I'll be monitoring them. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. I'll turn it over now to Dion McAdoo and Chelsea Greer for transportation reminders and updates.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Chelsea Greer. I am one of the community outreach specialists along with my partner, Dion McAdoo. Next slide, please. Okay, we do have one update, is our parent reimbursement updates. Of course, in addition to providing transportation services to all eligible students, OSSE will reimburse parents who transport eligible students with disabilities to and from school. Parents may qualify for reimbursement if the parent and or guardian has a transportation eligible student. That means they have an active IEP with the accommodation of transportation. Upon requesting reimbursement by completing the required forms in advance of transporting the student. Parents and or guardians must receive approval from OSSE DOT Transportation prior to seeking reimbursement by submitting a request or self-transport form. Or a parent and or guardian transported a student to and from school due to failure of OSSE transportation on our part of OSSE DOT to provide services. If families meet the above qualifications and want to apply for parent reimbursement, they can submit the request to the following parent guidelines. So basically, if you have any questions or concerns, this is the link that you would provide the parent and or guardian, or you can reach out to myself, Chelsea Greer, or Dion McAdoo for further questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is just the location of the reimbursement forms. If the parents and or guardians have any questions, the tab for the frequently asked questions will be very helpful. Once again, if you have additional questions, please reach out to my partner, Dion McAdoo, or myself, chelsea.greer@dc.gov, or dion.mcadoo@dc.gov. Or also you can drop any questions in the chat, and my partner Dion will respond to those questions. And that will be all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chelsea. Next up, we'll hear from Rita Larkins with Special Programs, Reminders, and Updates. Rita?
Great. Thank you so much, LaShonda, and good morning, everyone. Just a few updates about special programs. I wanted to first start with just the resolution to some of the wider identified problems. You can go to the next slide, please. Some of the wider identified problems and their resolutions. So just a few things here. Entry-exit. OSSE will input an exit date for historical records where none were provided by the LEA, so students are appearing in the correct LEA or school. We've also updated licensing, so we've removed the requirement to have users upload their license, and then we've also added an additional social worker as a license type. Under our October 19th updates, which will be coming out tomorrow, the age out, we are updating that language in the age out ladder to match the approved version of that document. And then in the final eligibility determination, we've made updates to include a comparable services checkbox for folks that are bringing in students from other states. Additionally, the document transfer that will be released on October 21st. It's another update that'll be in the system, and that allows the document transfer date to reflect the original document creation date. So those will be some updates for issues that you may or may not have reported to OSSE, but we are aware and are working with our vendors for that resolution. In the next slide, just a few other things we want to talk about, updates and resolutions that are occurring. Following the impacted functionality, these are some of those resolutions. So we are currently working on a resolution for IEP amendments. Right now, users are able to recreate the IEPs that were migrated as PDFs into special programs. Now, I do say recreate, meaning you are re-entering an existing IEP. And OSSE is, of course, working to create an update where these instances will be marked as a legacy IEP or document creation. In our parent guardian documents, before the document is created, users have been asked to ensure the correct individual was marked as having educational rights in special programs. We are working on a resolution that will resolve that issue related to parent guardians and educational rights as they appear in special programs. Additionally, I would like to add that adult students should also be added as contacts in their own record and marked as having educational rights to ensure that they appear in the appropriate spaces so that letters and other documents can be properly addressed to them. And then the final update here is the multi-LEA reports. So OSSE is working to ensure release of a feature that will allow users, only users that have access to multiple LEAs, to be able to run a standard report within one tenant and then include multiple LEAs in which that user has access to into a single report. So those are some of the updates that you'll see coming in the system, where we are resolving some of the issues and also just correcting some process related problems. One other thing I want to mention before we move to the next slide, and that is about LEA access. As a reminder to everyone participating in this call today, access to special programs is an LEA function, meaning the LEAs are responsible for updating the all staff data collection template. That is for staff, and the same is true for our non-public users. So I just wanted to remind LEAs of that responsibility, and also that relates directly to whether or not your users are gaining access in special programs. In this last slide, I just want to quickly talk about some of our training and support pathways that are available to users. First is our OSSE support tool. Now, OSSE support tool should be used so that you can have documented support requests. We respond to those. We try to respond to those within 8 business hours, our response time. Some issues, of course, as you're aware, do take further investigation, but you should not email OSSE staff directly with student information included in those emails, as that is a violation of PII. And we just want to make sure that you are using that OSSE support tool so that we can track, monitor, and respond to your requests in a timely manner. Another pathway for support is in our individual and small group support. So in the recent past 2 weeks or 3 weeks or so, I guess now, we have been rolling out our 30-minute focus sessions where LEAs are able to book time with one of our support staff to discuss specific issues. That can be a specific support issue that you are having or additional training that's required. So that's just another way for our LEA partners to get support in special programs. I want to also talk about LEA and school team training. So we have opened up the ability for LEAs to request on-site, virtual, or at our OSSE location training. So if you or your staff need additional training, we are supporting that by providing on-site, virtual, or just as we're having a big session here today for our related service providers, providing that on-site training support here at OSSE or at your site. Finally, let me mention the training videos that are available. We have on-demand training for specific topics, also small snippets, which we have been sharing with folks that just show you how to do a function really quickly. And then we also have recorded extended trainings. Every training session that we have provided is available in the OSSE Learning Management System as a recorded resource. So we are excited and happy that you all are continuing to engage in that. We just want to encourage you to continue using those resources as we add more to the videos and also to our individual and small group support. Thank you so much, LaShonda.
Thank you, Rita. All right, I'll turn it over now to Katie Rita for non-public placement reminders and updates.
Morning, everyone. Go ahead and do the next slide. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about student transfer between our district LEAs today. We're going to start at just basic for all kiddos and then talk a little bit more about how this specifically applies to non-public. So I think it's important to remember the two separate and distinct notions, which are placement and service location, right? So placement can be something like the student is receiving their services in a co-taught setting, or maybe they're in a resource room, or maybe they're in a non-public special education day school. The service location is that physical location where the child's IEP is being implemented, right? So that would be like the name of the non-public school, or it might be the campus to which the student is placed at in the self-contained classroom, right? So it's important to keep these things in mind when we're thinking about students who are transferring in and out of our LEAs, right? So if you have a new student who is coming in to your LEA, it's important to remember that you should be consulting with that parent and then providing FAPE in the form of comparable services as you are making decisions about that IEP, reading it for the first time, looking at data, things like that. It's important to remember that comparable services are similar or equivalent to those described in a student's existing IEP from that prior LEA. It's important to remember changing LEAs does not change IEPs, right? The IEP is the IEP until an IEP team meets and makes a change to that document, right? So the IEP itself might not change, but the service location, the physical location to where the student is getting their services might change. So that's important, right? The placement is not going to change because you went from LEA A to LEA B. It's also important for you guys to contemplate your ability to implement this transfer student within your entire LEA and not just the particular campus that the student is assigned to or came in at, right? Within your LEA, if you have multiple campuses, you have the ability to serve students. Think about, well, I don't have what we have for the student in this particular campus, but within our LEA, we do have it at this particular campus, right? You're serving the student within your whole LEA and not just in a particular classroom or a particular building. Remember that PWNs can play an important role in receiving LEAs' ability to understand actions that have been taken or denied. So be thoughtful when you are writing your PWNs. Remember that you might have frustrations when you receive a student with not as much information as you would have liked, and be thoughtful about thinking, hey, if this student leaves, do I have enough documentation to help a new LEA or even a new state understand why this child, why we made decisions for this child, or why we denied making certain decisions for this child. So things to think about when you have students that are transferring in between LEAs within DC. Next slide, please. So let's talk about this in relation to students transferring to non-public schools, right? So the LEA is responsible for providing FAPE before, during, and after placement in a non-public school while that student remains enrolled in your LEA. If the parent during this process determines that they're going to enroll their student in a new LEA, or maybe an LEA closes, or maybe the student ages out of the previous LEA, that new LEA now will become the LEA that's responsible for ensuring the provision of FAPE for that student. So for students attending non-public schools, the placement is a non-public school or program. The service location is a non-public school of attendance, right? So again, changing LEAs does not change IEPs. So for a non-public student, if you're in LEA A and your placement as determined by your IEP team is a non-public school and you're attending non-public school A, if you move or transfer to LEA B, your placement, the student's placement, unless the IEP team meets and makes a new determination, is still a non-public school, and the service location is still non-public school A, right? It's not, the service location doesn't change until a new service location is issued, right? So when you have a student coming in who might have attended, who is attending a non-public school, their placement is a non-public school, right? It's important to think about some things. Meeting with the parent, looking at previous PWNs to see if there were any issues that were, or actions that were taken or actions that were denied to the child previously coming with you. It's smart to possibly ask the parent to include the prior LEA and the current non-public on in conversations to determine how we're going to make a decision, and to make data-driven decisions. What information do you have about this particular child? Let's make a decision. Meaning that just because the child transfers in and the parent says, oh, well, we don't want to go to the non-public school anymore, doesn't mean that that's automatically a decision that has to be made, right? Have a conversation, look at the data, look at what was previously done. Maybe the previous LEA was in the process of transitioning the student back to a lesser restrictive environment. The current non-public school will have information, right? It's important to look at these things before you make a decision and not just change a child's placement or not change a child's placement without the facts. Next slide, please. So if an IEP team determines that a child should transition to a lesser restrictive environment, you develop a plan to ensure that the student is supported and successful in that transition. I would make sure that if that's something that you as an LEA are doing for a student at a non-public school, that you are documenting that in the systems, right? Do so through a PWN, do so through meeting notes. Try to coordinate if you know you have a student who is also transitioning placement, but is also transitioning LEAs, right? It will be helpful to make sure that you're documenting this just in case a student does transfer and a new LEA is looking to be like, I don't have all the information I need to make this determination. The parent and the student are telling me that the student should be transitioning back, but I don't see where that's happening, right? It's important that LEAs are not making placement decisions based on what you can offer or the current staff that you have, because parents may be making changes to enrollment mid-placement process. So make sure that when we're making placement decisions, we're making it based off of student needs. We're documenting it as such. So if these changes are made mid-process, the receiving LEA has that information that you were using to make the decision in order to move forward. And also, if you have a student who is transferring mid-process, feel free to connect with the parent and the previous LEA to collect that data, right? Ultimately, it's your decision as an LEA how much you want to engage in order to get that information to make a decision. So I would just say to support each other as sister LEAs and clearly communicate with parents on decisions and what their options are. Please know that OSSE may reach out to you, to your LEA for students transferring during the change in placement process. So please make sure that you're responding to us timely. Okay, so you have a new student coming in or you have a student who will be coming in. We are mid-change in placement process. We can't just leave the student and the family hanging, right? We need to make sure that we're either moving forward or not moving forward. So making sure you're responding to OSSE's request timely is helpful. We then can communicate with the parent and the student that we previously were communicating with, and we can help you guys make connections. If you don't respond to us timely, we can't help you make connections. So I want you guys just to walk away with knowing that if you have a student today who shows up at your LEA, whose placement is a non-public school, and they are currently attending a non-public school, they can continue to attend that non-public school at that location unless or until you make a determination that the child no longer needs that level of placement, or there's an issue with the location, meaning the current service location, that non-public school does not want to serve the student anymore and has issued a termination letter, or you possibly want to consider a change in location because that location is no longer able to meet the child's needs, right? Just because a child shows up doesn't mean that they need to be served within your LEA immediately unless their IEP says that they need to. If you have any questions or you're unsure or you don't believe you have all the facts, please reach out to me as soon as possible so I can help you. Having the student be within your LEA for 60 to 90 days, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, they were in a non-public school when they showed up. That is too long to wait to have that discussion with me on oh, can the student go back to their previous non-public school? So please feel free to be proactive, reach out, figure out what we need so we can make sure that our students are being thoughtfully and successfully transitioned, not only between LEAs, but also between placements. I think that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Katie. I'll turn it over now to Buell Yim with Teaching and Learning, Reminders and Updates. Buell?
Good morning. My name is Biao Yim. I am the Training and Technical Assistance Specialist, part of Teaching and Learning Division. OSSE continues to offer dyslexia awareness training as a part of DC Law 23-191, Addressing Dyslexia and Other Reading Difficulties Amendment Act of 2020. This interactive course is required for all educators serving kindergarten through grade 12. Participants can earn up to 16 PLUs for completion of all 3 modules. You could register at the DC LMS Learning Management System Power School, and if you have any more questions, please contact Dustin Tamsin at dustintamsin@dc.gov. Next slide, please. Continued information on the implementation of DC Law 23-191. Over 10,000 educators have completed the dyslexia awareness module. All LEAs must select an assessment tool to conduct universal screening for reading difficulties for students in grade K through 2. You can find a list of OSSE approved screeners as well as screener implementation guidance in the handout. Additionally, you can find a template for notifying the families of students identified as being at risk for developing reading difficulties. LEAs must submit a letter to OSSE for DCPS or DC Public Charter School Board by October 31st. This letter shall report whether an LEA complied with the requirements of the legislation. The results will be posted publicly within 10 days. We have created a frequently asked questions document in supporting LEAs with implementation, which you can find in the handout as well. If you have any questions, please contact Dustin Tamsin. Next slide, please. And don't forget to subscribe for OSSE Teaching and Learning Bulletin. All DC educators are encouraged to subscribe to the monthly TAL Bulletin to stay informed of any upcoming OSSE offered PD sessions, resources, and tips from the fellow educators. And this link will be shared on the handout as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Buell. We will have now announcements and reminders. And first up, we have a child sex trafficking and exploitation awareness training.
Yep, so this Friday is the first child sex trafficking and exploitation awareness training for this school year. We generally hold these trainings quarterly. It is a collaboration between OSSE and the Attorney General's Office in the District of Columbia. So it's this Friday from 10 to 12 p.m. It's a really great training that will give you a lot of information about risk factors, about signs, things that you can look for regarding students in your classroom, how you can respond to those things and help for LEAs. We very much encourage LEAs to send staff to this training to ensure that you are better educated on the issues that our youth are facing within their community and within the school building. So you can click on the register on the link, which is a live link, which is in the PowerPoint that's attached to this webinar. If you have any questions, you can email us at osse.lre@dc.gov. We hope to see some of your staff on Friday.
Thank you, Katie. And next up, we have upcoming trainings with LRP Special Education Connection.
This is just a reminder for LEAs that Special Ed Connection is a resource that OSSE is providing to all LEAs for free. LRP Special Ed Connection is a wonderful resource for understanding laws and policies for serving students with disabilities. So for more information on how you can access this wonderful resource, please reach out to me directly.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, if by chance you happen to miss a webinar, be sure to visit our webpage for the LEA Special Education Points of Contact monthly webinar series. A recording and a PDF version of the slides will be available within 1 week of the live webinar. You can also watch previous webinars and download any training resources and materials directly from the site. And our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, November 15th, 2023 at 10 a.m. Please be sure to mark your calendars accordingly. We look forward to having each of you all join us. And also please be sure to share that the LEA SPED POC webinar is happening with any of your colleagues who may not already be aware. We want to make sure that as many of our LEA SPED POCs in the district are joining us monthly. Now we need your feedback. Take out your cell phone, turn on your camera, and scan the QR code you see on the screen. You can also access the link via the survey via the link at the bottom of the slide. Each week we ask that you complete the survey. We utilize the insights you provide to ensure that we're meeting your needs. The survey is very quick. It takes you less than 5 minutes. We ask that you use this as a forum to request specific content and other resources you would like for us to cover. We're here to assist you, so we need to hear from you. I'll pause now on this slide to give everyone time to complete the survey in real time. And in the meantime, we'll direct any questions we've received in the chat. Christy, do we have any questions that have come in today to review with all of our viewers today?
Yep, sure have. All right, so someone asked a question about trainings on the Stepwell system, which are scheduled for November 14th at 9 a.m. and November 15th at 1 p.m. They said those training dates don't work for their LEA. Will there be more trainings or other opportunities to engage in this? So those trainings will be recorded, and we can check to make sure that you've completed them to make sure that you get access to the system. So yes, those will be recorded and made available on the LMS. Somebody asked a question, and you'll see in the questions box that I did reply all so that you guys could all see this. Is COS training appropriate for everyone who's going to be entering COS data? Yes, it is good for everyone. We encourage teachers to attend, and that training will also be recorded and posted in the LMS so that folks can refer to it. I don't believe you don't have to take that COS training in order to access the COS documents in special programs. Access to COS will depend on your user role, and prior to that training, I'll make sure that we clarify what user roles have access to the COS data and that document in there. Somebody flagged an issue related to comparable services, and that once you complete it, you can't move to AED because specialized instruction is not listed as a special education service option. I appreciate this flag. I checked with our CIO team, and they are working with PowerSchool on a resolution, which could be completed as early as this weekend. But so you should see a change soon in the system. They are triaging that now. Oh, somebody asked about trainings in the LMS, like what specific topics are available in the LMS. There are some specific topics in there. You're going to be best served by checking the LMS to see what's available there. But also during this webinar is a good time to flag for us additional topics that you would like to see trainings on related to special programs. So please feel free to provide that feedback to us. And I think that's all of the questions that are best to address for everyone. If you have any other questions, please feel free to go ahead and throw them in the questions box now.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Christy. We appreciate that. And with that, we've reached the end of our webinar this morning. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next month. Have a great day, everyone.